What's good, friends? List episode 86 of the Gamecast coming at you. Rainbow Six continues to dominate both the competitive and casual FPS scene, with over 15 million new players added alone this past year. While all seems golden on the front, a big question has left fans of the series puzzled. Just what the hell is Rainbow Six Quarantine, and is it even still coming out? So, this week, we dissect the fresh info on the franchise's newest entry and why its once thought new title, Parasite, isn't actually it at all. Does the series have the ability to support a PvE standalone experience without cannibalizing Ubisoft's similar offerings like The Division? We break down what it all means. Plus, the professional flirtation between Sega and Microsoft has been on display for quite some time now, and along with it naturally comes rumors of the latter acquiring the former, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, especially after praise comes from Sega on the implementation of their titles within the Game Pass service. Does this just add more fuel to the fire, or will we continue to see a second-party movement from the Japanese gaming giant with Microsoft? Also, we've got a fresh new look at the web version of xCloud, new info on a premium headset that's coming for the Xbox Series X and S from Microsoft, and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz I tell you every week, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Traveless on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mike Peapack. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And man, how fucking good's Valheim?
It's been a lot of fun. I have genuinely enjoyed that game a serious amount, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's been easily the biggest, caught off guard moment in gaming so far in these first 2 months, for 2021 now. I gotta get used to that still, saying 2021. I still haven't processed, last March, and this March is, fucking 2 days away, it feels like, so.
It's not it's just such an interesting experience because I've said it multiple times while we were playing, but obviously we haven't been recording while we were playing, but it just feels like a good mix of all the games of that type of genre. It feels like the perfect mesh of it all. It feels really similar to 7 Days to Die, but it's so much better for a multitude of reasons. The main one being I feel like it takes a lot less startup time. 7 Days to Die, it takes almost feels like it takes 14 hours of gameplay to
get up and running.
Yeah, and it's not that's a terrible thing because if you're looking for that immersive experience, that's the game you're going to want to get, right? But overall, it definitely feels like I just have a lot more fun with Valheim thus far because it's just a lot easier to pick up and play.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a lot less abrasive than I feel than 7 Days to Die, which I don't want to say abrasive by the means of it is difficult or anything like that, but in terms of stepping in for the first time, if you sat somebody down in front of Valheim or you sat somebody down in front of 7 Days, I have a feeling, at least in my gut, that people would be able to grasp and pick up on and interact with the game a little bit better in Valheim than 7 Days to Die. Same concept to a degree, a lot of the Venn diagram crosses over a lot of things with them. But the one thing that I was thinking, it was funny, I was thinking about it last night when we were playing, that I knew we were going to end up talking about a little bit on the show this week. I mean, considering it is the top selling game on Steam right now, they've sold over 2 million copies of the game already, and it's been out, 2 weeks, not even. So, it's nuts to see that in early release, I mean, but which is another conversation that is really exciting to talk about. If this game's already this enjoyable at the base of it, being early access and whatnot, that's only, knock on wood, things can only go up from here. But I was thinking about it last night because I knew we were going to talk about it on the show this week, and it's funny. It kind of reminds me of the old saying that, like, Valheim in general, it's a jack of all but a master of none. Like, it can do so many various things within the game of, like, different genres and, different mechanics that you're going to find in different game styles. Like, it does so many things well or good, but it's not like you can't put your finger on, one thing that it's like, what, this is that X factor that this game has more than anything. This is the reason why I keep coming back to this game specifically because of that. When you think of, for example, me playing Dark Souls recently, it's the level design, it's the combat, it's the immersiveness that you get from that game, but it's really, the difficulty that it's known for, but in the sense of it is risk versus reward and things like that. Like, there's certain aspects of that style of game that people directly go to Dark Souls and, From Software games specifically for that, where, I personally feel there's not that thing with Valheim, but that's not a bad thing because it does so many things well that I think the sum of its parts really equal up to something special that I'm having a ton of fun with. You're having a ton of fun with. Adam, more than ever, is having a ton of fun with. He's the one who's taking the onus to get things done, like when he's working from home and whatnot, like when he can. So he is taking our stronghold there, our multiple strongholds, because we're really notorious at, oh, we find a rundown thing. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just make a little base here, a little way station that we can come back to. But it's such a great experience so far. But and like I said, it's so early in the game's life that being in early access and seeing this game, hopefully evolving over time, it could only be, knock on wood, up from here. So, but besides that, Mike, what else have you been playing this past week? Catch me up on what's been going on gaming wise with Mike Peakback.
Yeah, I've just been playing some CSGO. Halo tournaments have resumed on Sundays. So I've been playing a little bit of Halo, trying to get ready for that. Finding a team and everything for those tournaments. Because it's a scene that I still want to support and enjoy. And I have been, genuinely enjoying it. So just been happy to play some Halo and have fun with it. And also, same with CS. Like, it's a little bit different now. Like, when I used to play it a year or two ago, I took it pretty serious. I was DMing a lot. I was putting a lot of work into smokes and things of that nature, getting my game up to snuff for league play. Then this season, it's been nice just to kind of get back into the game and play for fun. But with CS, it's one of those games where, like, as I play it for fun, I find myself getting sucked back into wanting to take it more and more serious. So that's where I'm at now. I've just been playing a lot of those two games. And then obviously just plenty of Valheim in the interim, like kind of getting my fix on that game, because it's a game that kind of checks off all those boxes for me, like you were saying in your introduction. And it's just something that all three of us have had a ton of fun together. So I've just genuinely been having fun with that game.
No, definitely. And like we always talk about, we're always looking for that game that is something all of us can play. Like, I feel, and what's nice too is, when I say this, we could bring Kyle into this game too. And I feel very confident that he isn't going to completely, take the train off the train tracks. It's not going to get completely derailed like he does sometimes in Minecraft, letting spiders into the fucking base and whatnot. But, it's a game that really you can have, obviously degression, if I can talk, but with it, but it's based around progression. It's based around, okay, it's very little, there's not a lot of hand holding, but at the same time, you're not overtly, beaten to death if you die once or something like that. Sure, after a while, your stats may get a little, a little nerf to them or whatnot. But at the same time, though, like, if you're making progress, I think the game is built to recognize that and not completely like, oh, you've just invested, 10 hours into doing X, Y, and Z and you died once, okay, we're not going to completely ruin your experience because you messed up one thing. Like, it's built around progression and achieving goals with, you know, the group that you're playing with. So, and that's why I think, like, it's that game that I think one of those games we've always really been looking forward to, filling that void of what can we all play together? What can we find that everybody can have a role and be constructive in? And it seems so far that's been the case with it. On my end, obviously, talking about Valheim, you know, we've been playing that a lot, you know, between our friend group. That's been the game that we all kind of party up for. But outside of that, I know I was saying, hey, hopefully, you know, last week I was saying, hey, hopefully next week I'm talking about it. Yeah, I beat Dark Souls. I got done. I kind of got hard stuck right now, with, Incense Fortress. I kind of hit a wall, and it's just, I think I'm at a point where I need to kind of grind a little bit and farm souls and get up, that I was just like, you know what? I'm just not necessarily ready to jump in and, you know, kind of commit that time to just doing one specific thing. I'm just meh type of thing. So, you know, I kind of fell off of it, kind of didn't, but I've also been going back through playing, and really finishing for the first time in, you know, two's case, the Half-Life 2 episodes. I never went back and actually beat them, so I've been going through and doing that because I would like to. One of my objectives is to find a way to play Half-Life Alyx this year. My PC can easily run it. It's trying to find a way that I don't necessarily have to spend $400 at least to play it at the bare minimum. So I'm kind of getting in that, you know, getting caught up with Half-Life, getting, you know, refreshing myself on that world and getting back into it because it's so unique and so untouchable in so many ways, that nothing else could really tickle that fancy. So been kind of doing that. And then also too, the other night, my fiance and I wrapped up our Resident Evil 7 replay.
Nice.
Replay for me, obviously. I played that game fucking how many times. But her first time actually sitting there and like watching it all the way through, or like playing it all the way through. So that was her first time, and she liked it. She kind of said the same thing we usually do, that it doesn't necessarily stick the landing completely, but it's serviceable. You know, but that shouldn't necessarily degrade the rest of the game. You know, she definitely enjoyed it, loved that, and loved it. You know, I think she likes it a little bit more than the, you know, over the shoulder third person perspective, or, you know, obviously the fixed camera of the traditional old school Resident Evil titles. But with that being said, that we also did start, since we were already in a Resident Evil mood, I had picked it up on Black Friday and had yet to play it, but the Resident Evil 3 remake. So we started that the other night. We're only probably about 3 or 4 hours into it. Granted, it's not that long of a game, so we're probably halfway through it or so. But it really, really, I completely understand why this game frustrated people in terms of when they had just this monolith giant of Resident Evil 2 remake stacked up against that the year prior. You know, I completely understand why people did not feel the connection with Resident Evil 3. The polish is there, the quality is there by all means. You know, but I think just in general, Resident Evil 2 is a much more beloved title than 3. You know, I vaguely remembered playing both of them as a young kid of my cousins, just because I wasn't allowed to fucking have those games at that point in my life when they came out. So I remember, you know, playing those games and enjoying those games for what they were. But I remember a lot of people, and really, you know, obviously in the boon of the internet 20 years later, it seems to, you know, reaffirm those that, you know, Resident Evil 2 is a much more beloved game long term, I think. And there are a ton of people who love Resident Evil 3. I'm just a fan of the franchise in general, whether it be the more serious, you know, horror aspects to the campy aspects of it. You know, I love it in general for what it is, because it's so wholly unique. But I can definitely see where there is criticisms to it and how the game plays, and also the replayability in terms of, you look at Resident Evil 2, you're getting basically two completely, you know, I don't want to say completely different games, but two variations of the game that you have in the box right out the gate. You could either play Leon's story or Claire's story. You know, so you don't have that in Resident Evil 3. It's just, boom, you start up your Jill Valentine, who, just to say, is fucking fantastic. The way that they portray her in this game, the way that she's, you know, held to such a high degree from a writing standpoint, a portrayal standpoint, that how they position this character for the 21st century and, you know, a modern 2020, 2021 version of Jill Valentine, I think is really, really, really good. And she's by all means the highest part of that game so far. And it's really kind of caught me off guard, maybe because, hey, my expectations were low compared to, I saw the, you know, obviously I was, you know, paying attention to the conversation around the time that it was released last year in terms of, you know, well, it's not living up to Resident Evil 2 and yada yada. But I'm also, you know, coming in a little bit later, having that, like I said, my expectations are probably a little low, but I'm really enjoying it. There's some frustrating parts of that game, but that's just Resident Evil. It's frustrating at times, and it's designed to be like that too at times. But overall, I'm really enjoying it. So I know definitely for sure I'll be talking about it next week when I wrap it up, but because we'll probably end up potentially even finishing it tonight or something. So, you know, it's one of those games that's easy for us to sit there and play through because it is so cinematic at times, like any other Resident Evil game. So, but I digress. Mike, before I drag on too long about all we're playing, because we got a pretty jam-packed show, let's head in the button mash for this week. Let's go through our quick hit news articles for the week before we get into our big topics. We're going to dive in a little deeper, but let's kick it off with button mash, starting with Remedy, a studio I love, Alan Wake, Control of recent, has more than doubled its operating profit in 2020, achieving a record financial year despite releasing no games. This is according to the company's latest financial report for 12 months ending December 31st, 2020, which shows full year revenue is up by 30% at 41.1 million euros. Operating profit comes in at 13.2 million euros, over twice the 6.5 million euros achieved during 2019. Microsoft has announced the Xbox wireless headset. Yet again, another Xbox wireless headset from Microsoft. A new headset for Xbox consoles, including the new Series X and S. The black and green over-the-ear headset has retractable microphone, PU leather ear cups, and a metal interior band. The edges of the ear cups are rubberized rotary dials used to adjust the volume and game chat audio balance. The overall aesthetic has been designed to be, quote, intentionally understated to allow it to blend in with the surroundings alongside the Xbox Series X and S. And it also, I believe, has... Yes, it does support... Yes, it does support 3D audio as well, which is really good. I had to double check on there because some reason that got cut off on the docket. But yes, it does support 3D audio, which at a $100 price point is pretty good and very comparable to Sony's Pulse 3D headset for the PlayStation 5. So really nice to see that come out. I fucking love audio when it comes to game design and really just any audio experience with my entertainment. So I'm a big headset guy. I've had my SteelSeries Arctis 7 Pros, I believe they are, for like 3 or 4 years now. And hands down the best headset I've ever owned. And I'm really, really tempted to get just the straight up Arctis Pro model. But at $100, you really can't beat that, especially being a wireless headset with a lot of this quality with 3D audio and whatnot. So bravo to Microsoft on that. And somebody will have to let me know because I'm not in the market for a headset, but I really would like to know how that goes. But anyways, No Man's Sky has received another update titled Companions, which lets players adopt and breed alien companions. The Companions update launches today. That's Wednesday. We're recording a little earlier this week, but Wednesday, this is February 17th. And will let players tame, breed, train, and even speak to the creatures they encounter. No Man's Sky has long been known for the intimidable alien creatures that inhabit the planet, or the game's procedurally generated planets, but this update will let players interact with them on a deeper level. G4, it's coming back, baby. G4, the gaming channel that if you're like our age, mid to late 20s, will remember very fondly of just... that used to be my thing back in the day when I was like sick or something, junior high, I'm staying home, I'm sick or whatever. Throw G4 on in the background, Attack of the Show will be running through. Every now and then the X-Play rerun will be on, something like that. And then also too, I believe I think that was at the time that they did have the rights to MXC, and we get the reruns for MXC. Don't get eliminated! So hands down, awesome sick day TV show. A lot of fond memories of that. But they have announced that Adam Sessler and Kevin Pieria are officially returning to G4 and will be hosting the revivals of X-Play and Attack of the Show, respectively. But fun fact, Adam Sessler is a transphobe, so fuck him. Anyways, the newest season of Fortnite marches on with another pop collaboration. This time, Fortnite is getting cosmetic outfits from Tron. The quote, end-of-the-line collection, available now in the Fortnite item shop, will kit your character out for the grid. The skin includes outfits that will make your character look like Cypher, Firewall, Proxy, Datapath, Packet, Bitstream, Command Line, Upload, IO, and Bandwidth from Tron. Square Enix has announced that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions of Marvel's Avengers will arrive on March 18th, 2021. Announced in the latest Marvel's Avengers War Table, these next-gen versions will be released alongside Hawkeye and his operation called Future Imperfect, I'm sorry. It's important to note that not only will those who will own Marvel's Avengers on PS4 and Xbox One be able to upgrade to the next-gen versions for free, the game will support cross-generation play between PlayStation and Xbox consoles, and players will also be able to transfer their saves between versions. And then, coming out of IGN, they're happy to reveal the nominees exclusively for the 8th annual SXSW Game Awards and announced that they are partnering with SXSW to bring you the show on Saturday, March 20th. So if you're interested in more award shows, jump on over there, March 20th. The 43 nominees across 12 platforms make up this year and include the likes of IGN's Game of the Year, which was Hades, also Dreams, Ghost of Tsushima, Half-Life Alyx, Cloudpunk, and many more. You can go over to SXSW's website. You can vote over there. They take, your vote into count whenever it comes to that. So be sure to go over there, check it out, and tune into the show. And finally, Mike, Xbox Game Pass is getting a whole new lineup of titles in the second half of February 2021. This includes Dirt 5, which was really the new racing title that was enhanced for the Xbox Series X and S at launch, was a big release for them. That was really, I can't remember what, no, that was a launch title. So yeah, November of 2020, already coming to Game Pass. Included with that as well is Code Vein on PC on February 18th. Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, the Ultimate Edition on cloud and console on February 18th. Wreckfest on cloud, console, PC on February 18th. Then on the 23rd, Killer Queen Black, which is fucking fun. Please go play Killer Queen Black whenever it comes to console. Get a bunch of, well, I guess you can't get a bunch of friends because of the whole pandemic thing, but socially distanced, play online, do whatever. Killer Queen Black is a fun time. Play that co-op whenever you get the chance. That comes to cloud and console on the 23rd, and then on the 25th, obviously, Dirt 5 on cloud, console, and PC, Elite Dangerous on console, and Super Hot Mind Control Delete on PC. All that on the 25th. So, Mike, before we head into our main topics for the show, our big topics, news, all that jazz, anything you want to run back on Button Match before we dive into the show?
Yeah, I want to talk about Remedy obviously having a very successful operating profit. That's a studio who has definitely been on pretty much everyone's radar for a long time because of their success with Alan Wake, and now they have Control that's pretty successful. And I just want to take my hat off to them and kudos to them because that's a studio that has always produced a interesting type of game. Always very unique and different from whatever else is out on the market. So it's great to see them succeeding. Obviously, G4 coming back is pretty cool just because, like you said, going through the rundown, like being a little bit older, that's something that we kind of we remember fondly because it's like the first time video games were being legitimized was whenever it had its own its own channel.
And it was like, I don't want to say that because YouTube was there, but YouTube was very much in its infancy. Like this was whenever Smosh was starting out. So that, put that in your mind whenever you're trying to visualize this. But fun fact, G4 on their trailer rundown, I can't remember what exactly it was called, but the block that they would just show trailers and whatnot for games. First time I saw Portal.
Wow.
Yeah. And Portal is one of my fucking favorite franchises of all time. So yeah, that was love at first sight. I remember seeing that it was actually your house. We were doing something. I can't remember what, in your living room. And we had G4 on in the background. I can't remember what we were doing. Oh, I think we were probably playing Counter-Strike on your computer or some shit at that point, but CS 1.6. But I remember that being on and seeing it. I'm like, I need to remember that game because that looks really cool. But I digress. Mike, continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, nothing really crazy. Obviously, just want to touch on the Xbox Game Pass games that are coming out, because there are some pretty big games that are continuously being released on Game Pass, and it, continues to be one of the, the better bargains that you can get in gaming.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I mean, that's it comes without saying. Obviously, we're fans of Xbox Game Pass. If we're using the terminology in the show that we've been doing now for almost 2 years, that we are fans of the show or of the product that is there. We're not biased towards it, but we're fans of it. Because I've been pretty critical at times of it, that I want to see now how this plays off in the long run. We planted those seeds now for 2-3 years of, hey, we're acquiring studios, we're doing this and that. Every game that you get from them, whether it's people from or studios like Playground Games or Dead Labs, any more on the what you would traditionally find, or even AI. What's the one from We Happy Few? I can't remember. That's gonna kill me. But anything ranging from that maybe AA sized partnership that we have, or acquisition now that we have, all the way stemming to a Bethesda with Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield are both going to be on Game Pass day one. Like, I'm ready to start to see how those seeds that have been planted, how they play out in actual, when they come to fruition, of when, hey, when this actually is put into play. Because we could talk about it and we could say, like, hey, that really, really sounds appetizing. That's going to pay off in the long run, this and that. And hopefully that is true. And I still expect that to be true. But, I want to see that actually put into play now. I want to see how the, gaming industry reacts to something like an Elder Scrolls 6. It's just, boom, released. There you go. It's on Game Pass. You can pay $1. You can get in for free for 2 weeks. So you can go in and just fucking grind the game for free. Like, I want to see how the gaming industry reacts to something of that size. And, knock on wood, there's a lot of, hearsay around supposedly Starfield being this year. So maybe we'll see that sooner than later, and I don't want to say Halo Infinite, oh, that's not going to be it, but I expect that from Microsoft. I know that Halo isn't in necessarily the standing it used to be in. I'm not expecting the zeitgeist of gaming to surround Halo like it did Halo 3 when it came out. It's just not, we're not at that point with that franchise right now. Again, but hopefully this is the start of that we get to that point where, hey, it turns out to be a Destiny level investment for people that they keep coming back to. But I'm ready to see that. But point being, I still think it is the best value in gaming. Sure, we may not get, Dirt 5, a great launch title for both the PS4 or the PS5 and the Xbox Series X/S. But, that's great. But I'm ready to see, some AAA, high level AAA stuff. Not that isn't, but you get what I'm saying. It's a racing game, that's cool, that's awesome. But I'm ready to see what this looks like with an actual, AAA, quad A experience that's coming, out across the board into Game Pass. I want to see what that value really looks like, because, hey, $15 to get in, that's great. And you do get this a la carte experience, but, at what point are you, okay, we're getting games that are 6+ months old or something like that. Cool. I want to play something new. I was waiting to see, all these Xbox games you're talking about, yada, yada, and I'm talking, somebody who is the casual person coming in and, maybe not listening to the show or something like that, who isn't that invested. But at the same time, there's some truth to that. So, but I totally agree. Xbox Game Pass, still the best value in gaming. You don't get as much for your dollar with gaming than on Xbox Game Pass, and you can just get in as long as you have a fucking phone. Like, boom, you're good. And we'll actually talk about that in a little bit. So, with that being said, Mike, let's head into our big topics and news for this week. Starting with rumored Rainbow Six Parasite. Originally don't call it Quarantine anymore. Which, to be fair, probably good. They're using Parasite as a placeholder title for that, because probably a good thing that they didn't use Quarantine anymore. That's a little read the room type thing. And they did. I'll give Ubisoft that. They read the room. Maybe we shouldn't call our game Quarantine after a pandemic. So rumored Rainbow Six Parasite is placeholder title. The official name is coming soon. This comes from Adam Banghurst over on IGN. As always, link in the description. Go over there, give Adam and the rest of our talented writers that we pull from, go over there and gives them some clicks, some views on their sites. Anyways, quote, after news spread last night, Ubisoft has confirmed that Rainbow Six Quarantine is being renamed, but the title Rainbow Six Parasite is an internal placeholder title. The game's final name and new details will be shared, quote, soon. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot recently said that the previously announced Rainbow Six Quarantine could be renamed, and a patch upload to the PlayStation Network seems to contain an image that showed the game its new name was Rainbow Six Parasite. As reported by MP First, this update, which is said to be an, quote, internal launch patch, includes, quote, an image from the file belonging to the PlayStation 4 on the dash, boot, and save data icon, and the mention of Rainbow Six Parasite. In a statement to IGN, Ubisoft explained that the game's name would be changed and that the patch did not refer to internal testing for Quarantine, but that Parasite is a placeholder title with an official title to be announced soon. Quote, while we recently shared that we will be changing the name of Rainbow Six Quarantine, Parasite is only a placeholder that our internal team uses. We are very happy with the interest generated by the game's development and will share more details soon, including the official name. The changed title on network testing and recent affirmation that the game would arrive by the end of September may point to an announcement coming sooner rather than later. It's also possible that this update could be paving the way for a possible beta test. Per MP First's digging, PlayStation Vita owners will also be happy to know that there was an image included that shows a seeming work-in-progress look at the guide for remote play in the game. Not that that really applies to us, but
PS Vita.
I'm like
I know who it applies to.
Yeah, well, Matt Mahalko, yes, but also me. Matt and I are like 2 of like 10 people who own them. So, hey, cool, awesome. But that also could be, hey, remote play works that way, cool. Make it work in xCloud. So, you know, it could just be that tech that could easily be transferred over. So, still applies to us. Still applies to us Xbox fans. At least to the show. Anyways, I digress. Rainbow Six Quarantine, or Parasite if you want to call it, don't call it Parasite, is a, quote, 3-player tactical co-op shooter that is set in the future. It has players entering a quarantine zone to fight a mutated alien parasite that has been infecting human hosts and causing a ton of chaos. Rainbow Six Quarantine was originally announced at E3 2019 for an early 2020 release, but the pandemic contributed to its delay, as it has for so many other games. So, after that, all of that, it's really great to finally really hear something about this project, even though I know it's not, you know, a title on the front of everyone's mind, a project that people are really, you know, scratching at the bit and chomping at the bit to get to. But to me, at least, more co-op, side project level experiences like this from big franchises, in my eyes, is never a bad thing. You know, take, for example, we're looking at Quarantine, Parasite, whatever you want to call it. Ubisoft's Rainbow Six PvE take on all of this. You take Siege's shooting mechanics and you mix it with what looks to be like Left 4 Dead style gameplay. And to me, it sounds like you at least have a pretty interesting base to build off of. And I would at least like to jump in and try that out because I love Left 4 Dead. Me personally, I love Siege and the shooting mechanics of it. But you kind of mesh those two together, I'm at least going to be interested. So, and plus too, I personally want to see this project succeed, as it was previously going to be this like space exploration, shooting, crafting. It almost kind of reminded me of No Man's Sky. I just don't think on it as much of a procedurally generated grandiose level. But it was originally a game that they reworked this game because that was canceled at one point. You could actually, if you go in Watch Dogs 2, I believe it was. Yeah, Watch Dogs 2. If you go, because it takes place in San Francisco. So in Watch Dogs 2, if you go to, since it's pretty the scale of, you know, the city of San Francisco, the map, if you go to the building that Ubisoft San Fran headquarters is like located in, and you could hack into the building, it'll play a teaser trailer like proof of concept for this game at one point. I believe it's still in the game. They haven't patched it out or anything like that, but that game has been reworked into this. They've taken that, the engine and whatnot and applied it to this. So the fact that at least that team's work hasn't gone to waste and they're still employed, and especially given this fucking shitty pandemic and everything, to me, that's great. I want to see this project succeed at the bare minimum. So, but that being said, what does this look like, or what does this do, I should say, I guess, for the Rainbow Six community, Mike? Is having a PvE experience like this something that really fits within that universe when I think of Rainbow Six, not as just a fan, but somebody from, the outside, just when I think Rainbow Six and it pops into my head, I think of it as such a tactical, competitive experience, as that's always fit into, like, the mind share of that to me has always fit into a more competitive experience from a PvP style play. For the most part. I mean, there's obviously been tea hunts and stuff like that we fucking love to do. Man, I could go for some tea hunts here soon. But besides that, when you think of, when I think of Rainbow Six and I'm thinking of things of that experience, like, I'm thinking of a PvP first, at least to me. And I think to a lot of people. So with that being said, like, where does a PvE experience like that, does it fit with Rainbow Six? Does it fit with that whole, genre that this, franchise has been kind of integrally tied to for a whole time? And on top of that too, what does this mean for other PvE franchises within Ubisoft, like The Division, for example, which has been, has been more popular than ever after the Division 2 last year, or almost 2 years ago now. Holy shit. But where's that fit in with everything like that? What do you think about all this, Mike?
Yeah, I see, like you said, there was back in the day, like classic Rainbow Six, if you will. And when I say back in the day, I'm not trying to make anyone be like, oh, this guy means like 2008. No, I mean like literally the year 2002, whenever I was still playing on dial-up, I was playing a Rainbow Six game online. Like, that's how old we're talking.
Right.
So it's like almost 20 years ago, I was playing Rainbow Six online. And just as much as PvP was a huge part of it, and adversarial, as it was called back then, there was huge groups of people that did cooperative game modes like Terrorist Hunt, or you could actually do the missions in the game as a team. Like, that's something that you can do. So that was always a big part of the game, big part of the culture, big part of the community. And it does feel like they're kind of trying to reach that group, because even though, as you were saying, The Division has been a huge hit recently and has been gaining steam, it's still something that someone like me, who has been a longtime Rainbow Six supporter, I haven't partaken in that game at all, essentially. And I barely play Siege for a lot of different reasons, not just like disliking the game or whatever, but like genuinely there's a few different reasons as to why I just don't play the game. And this seems like they're kind of trying to reach out to someone like me, who I do partake in both co-op and adversarial game modes. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think it's something that will let them kind of sink their teeth back into an experience like a classic Rainbow Six experience without completely overhauling their entire game on Siege, because, they've made it perfectly apparent that Siege is the game plan for going forward for a while as far as esports is concerned. So to me, it just seems like it's the right time for them to kind of get a little palate cleanser for them as a studio and try to give us a new experience that it might not be necessarily new to everyone, because it might be a lot like games that we used to play back in the day, or it could be a completely different experience. I'm not sure, but by and large, to the vast majority of gamers now, it's probably going to be a pretty fresh experience, and I'm excited for it. And it feels like they might have learned from their transgressions with the Ghost Recon Wildlands and games like that while some people have enjoyed those types of games thoroughly, it's not one that I have particularly enjoyed, or I feel like it's almost a little niche, you know what I mean? Whenever people talk about playing that game.
No, definitely. And you make a good point about like Ghost Recon and whatnot, especially we've seen their past two releases for the most part have been kind of wet farts for the most part. They've just kind of come out and that's it. Like, even especially you think of, what was it, Breakpoint, I believe it was? Is that what it was called? The newest one? Yeah. Like, Wildlands was a little different. I was at least a little excited with Wildlands just for the sole fact I'm like, holy shit, we're getting another Ghost Recon game. It's been fucking forever, it feels like, like I was kind of ready for something like that. And not that game was bad, it just felt like they left it out there to dry for the most part. Just because they saw more, profitability and I'm sure in games like Siege at that point, and even debatably the Division 1 whenever that came out. I should say when the Division 1 was really kind of reworking itself and picking up steam again and becoming a really, really good experience for players who were interested in a lot of live service titles. And now we're seeing with the Division 2, it really being pretty damn good at launch and carrying over, with content and whatnot. Because I believe Ubisoft actually, I think it was maybe Friday, something like that. Hell, it might have even been earlier. No. It was last week, late last week, that they came out and said, hey, they're doing like a Resident Evil, they were doing a Resident Evil, like crossover type thing that you can get some Raccoon City Police Department, gear and whatnot, which is cool, which I've actually jumped back in to try to get that. But outside of that, they said, hey, we're going to have some more content coming out and whatnot. So, it just feels like those games never got the support. They were just fucking like, hey, let's release them. We need to fill this gap because we have this franchise and because we know it's guaranteed to at least sell X, Y, and Z based on, this amount of players who played for this long and whatnot. It's all comes down to money with such a large scale worldwide publisher like Ubisoft that it's like, I can't blame them. But with that being said, it's so rare that we now see it with Rainbow Six specifically. Like we haven't really seen Rainbow Six venture outside of Siege. It's been, they did that like one mobile game or something like that people were pissed off of because Sam Fisher was in that, me included, because I just want a goddamn new Splinter Cell game. But I digress with that. Don't even get me started on that. But that being said, like they haven't really expanded that franchise too much. It's kind of been, hey, here's Siege. And to me, somebody who loves Siege, and to the millions of other people who have been playing Siege, I believe they just said they got like 15 million new users with Siege this past year in a 12-month span, which is fucking ridiculous. Now, granted, the game's super cheap to get into now and yada yada, but there's something there with people that want. I think it's been pulled back enough that, hey, this is the only Rainbow Six experience that we have right now, and I'm sure other people are wanting like, hey, back in, you look at releases like Rainbow Six 3 and stuff like that, like they had both PvE and PvP. So like, only having really one, and there are T-hunts in, Rainbow Six Siege, but nowhere to the level that, I think a lot of people are wanting with a little more, expansiveness and whatnot, and just more, I think, ways to play with your friends outside of just, hey, we want to do, we can run a T-hunt real quick and be done.
And the goofy operators with all their abilities and stuff, like it just doesn't. It's not as fun.
Right. It's become a military version of Overwatch. And someone like me who likes Overwatch a ton, like it fits well into how I play. And I like the more tactical edge to Siege than, whenever I want to play something like, hey, I love Overwatch, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's not as in the weeds as I would like it to be, or people don't play it in the weeds as much as I like it to be, where Siege, I think, requires you a little more to do so. It's only one avenue for Rainbow Six right now. And to me, I think you've heard a lot of, me personally, I've seen the discourse online. I've seen the conversations online. We've seen the hype build around Back for Blood. Like, people love PvE experiences. Like, they want more of them. It's not just, and I'm sure you look at Ubisoft, like I said, it comes down to money at the end of the day because they're a business and they're a fucking humongous business. But at the same time, like, they're listening to their fans. They're giving them multiple experiences. I think they, we talk about bandwidth a lot on the show of franchises. I think easily, if we're talking any kind of, we're talking any sub-series within Tom Clancy's brand in Ubisoft, I think Rainbow Six easily has the most. Because you could do so much, and there's so much really you could pull from the lineage of that franchise that, bringing this is, and granted, we're venturing into, I think Rainbow Six Siege really opened the door, like you were saying, with all these different operators that they have now, with so many different abilities and tech and whatnot, that's really opened the door to something like, Parasite, if you want to even call it that, Quarantine, whatever you want to call it right now, that this door can be open now to some far out stuff. Hey, we can go to space. We can go and do, an Aliens type experience. So to me, this is really exciting. Like, I am very much excited for this game just because I love PvE, PvE experiences, like getting together a group of buddies, everybody, teaming up and just going through different maps and stuff, going through different campaigns like we do in Left 4 Dead. Like, that to me is so fun to do. Just run it back. Let's do another. Like, let's change up this. Let's do this. And, seeing what kind of score you can get, what kind of time you can get, what kind of, just different things you can do within that. And I'm really curious how they're going to take a spin on the PvE-esque experience, if I could talk. Whenever you look at, like a Division. Really, that is the marquee PvE experience that they have. That is their Destiny for the most part. That is Ubisoft's version of Destiny that they have. That, hey, they want you investing your time. If you're buying one game this year, they want it to be that game. So let's give you all the content in the world. Let's do this, that. Here's the expansions, Warlords of New York, like yada yada. I want to see how a franchise like Rainbow Six, which to me has a much bigger pool, I think, than the Division in terms of longevity and namesake and whatnot, like what that looks like and how they present that long term with that. Will that have any interference with the Division? I don't think so, because I think they're going to be two vastly different experiences for the most part. But at the same time, too, people only have so much free time and whatnot, and how are they going to push this game compared to, the Division or really any other franchise that they have that's live service based, because they have a few, within their catalog of, franchises and IPs and whatnot. But I digress. Anyways, Mike, let's move on to our next news article for this week. And it's about that one publisher, developer even, you want to say, I guess so. Yeah, publisher, developer, entity within gaming, you want to call it, Sega. And they are really happy with the results of Xbox Game Pass. Shocker. Because they have gotten more titles on there recently, like Yakuza and whatnot. But they that is the one studio that we always keep hearing about, people wanting Microsoft to go and just open up the checkbook on. But who knows? We're going to kind of get into that a little bit, because supposedly, like I said, they're really happy with the results of Xbox. This comes from, or Game Pass, I should say. This comes from Daniel Hollis over on Pure Xbox. As always, the link in the description. Xbox Game Pass is the gift that keeps on giving to consumers, but developers and publishers have also expressed their admiration for the service over the years, including Sega, which is, quote, really happy with the results. In an extensive rundown about Xbox Game Pass over at Eurogamer, Sega Europe's Senior Vice President of Commercial Publishing, Anna Downing, spoke about the company's relationship with Xbox Game Pass, which has seen titles such as 2 Point Hospital and the Yakuza franchise thrive since their inclusions. Quote, "We're really happy with the results, and we hope Microsoft are too. Ultimately, they wanted quality titles. We wanted to take advantage of the great new opportunity." Downing also spoke about the success 2 Point Hospital has enjoyed since being added to Xbox Game Pass, and how its addition, quote, strengthens the exposure you get to a huge first-party audience. Quote, "It helped propel the franchise to over 3 million players worldwide. That's a huge benefit of being on Game Pass. It strengthens the exposure you get to a huge first-party audience. That surge in engagement, in turn, helps to further establish your product in the marketplace. It's great for us, and it's great for consumers who get to experience something that they may not have engaged with outside of the Game Pass model." Finally, she spoke about how Sega's strategy over the past decade has been to deliver games that continuously update with new content, seeing a mixture of free and premium content available to purchase. With that said, Downing commented on how games could even be developed with a subscription service in mind, depending on how the industry evolves. Quote, Can that model work within a subscription service? Absolutely. Would we specifically develop games with a subscription service in mind? Potentially. It really depends on how the offering evolves over the next few years and what consumers' demand and expectation is. There's been a lot of speculation over the past few months on whether Microsoft is looking to make Sega its next big acquisition. The most recent instance came after a company restructure sparked hope in fans that news was on the horizon. Alas, it seems unlikely, but anything is possible following last year's colossal ZeniMax Media buyout. So, Mike, Sega and Microsoft, they seem to be a pair that, like we said, everyone really loves to fantasize about, not, given not only their history together, the amount of titles that Sega has published on the Xbox, both exclusively and non-exclusively, but, also the fact that Microsoft has been very vocal about wanting to finally try to cement a foothold, an actual presence in the Japanese market. And of course, they have just the straight cash to flex that and to flash it around and try to make that happen. But, let's be real. Sega is Sega. They seem very confident in what they are in modern gaming, being the staple in the third-party stratosphere, supplying both AA and AAA experiences to their console partners, to their, manufacturing partners, everything along those ends. So I guess the bigger question is, Mike, would Sega ever really want to be solely owned by someone, let alone Microsoft? Or, will their partnership with Microsoft always remain as, just friends with, these at least length commitments that we're seeing with, the likes of the Yakuza franchise and whatnot? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think it might be a little crazy, or it might be a little obvious to say, like, obviously, maybe with the Bethesda deal, everyone kind of thought there's no way Bethesda / ZeniMax would ever get bought out. And then we see that happen. Maybe it's a little bit crazy to compare the two companies, Sega and Bethesda, ZeniMax, because I would say Sega and the Japanese community, obviously iconic, has a lot of IPs that are just legendary. They're making a lot of money on the back end off of sales for their games. Like, Sonic is a game and now a movie that'll live on forever. And it just would seem silly that they would, get purchased or give away everything to Microsoft in that way. I could see a deal being made where potentially Microsoft pays a large sum of money to have their games exclusively put onto Xbox, but Sega still keeps the money from back-end stuff like Sega merch and stuff like that. That's a deal that, kind of would make sense to me here in a business sense. At the end of the day, I would just see it as, it just really depends, like, money talks, and how much money is Microsoft willing to fork up, since they just spent all that money for ZeniMax Bethesda, but also how much money would it take for Sega to budge? And nobody knows the answer to that besides those two parties, and I'm sure we'll hear about it going forward, but I don't see why this couldn't be a partnership in matrimony going forward, like, where both benefit greatly from leaning on each other. Like, I don't see why Microsoft wouldn't say, hey, you don't necessarily have to give us money from your merch sales and things of that nature, but we can help you with the front end money to develop the games, and you keep them exclusively on the Xbox platform or the Microsoft platform, since PC is getting so popular with Microsoft. Like, that's something I could see totally working itself out and being totally plausible in today's day and age, and seeing that come to fruition would not shock me at all. But also at the same time, I couldn't see, it wouldn't surprise me to see Sega and Microsoft never get to that point, but Sega still can respect Microsoft and what they're working on. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. And you make a really interesting, argument for, or I guess point bringing up that, maybe for games specifically, that they could strike a deal of, hey, exclusively moving forward, we're not going to be it almost like a second party partnership, like we saw with, or really like we're seeing with Sony and Blue Point Games, who has remade Shadow of the Colossus. They remade most recently Demon Souls and did the remasters of the Uncharted collection or Uncharted trilogy, and where they haven't moved away from it. Insomniac Games is another one, now wholly owned by Sony Interactive, but at that point, they've been second party all this time, and they put out tons and tons and tons of exclusive PlayStation franchises for so long, where that might be something that, hey, we're going to do this, like, you're going to be treated like a first party studio. We're going to back you in X, Y, and Z areas, but you still get to control and maintain, creative use and direction with the IP that you solely own, like Sonic and like, a couple of others. Plus, because I'm sure Sega at the same time too, you got to think. And granted, Microsoft's been pretty flexible about and wanting to get there, because they're coming from behind for the most part, get their franchises in as many hands as possible. But like, you got to imagine Sega has relied on people playing their games on Nintendo, on PlayStation, on various platforms that, cool, you got to think if that's the case and Microsoft wants to get these franchises onto their platforms or their ecosystem, you're cutting out half of the, potential places that you can, spread your game across and get it into more hands, where it's probably only going to be on PC and Xbox if that's the case. But that doesn't, to me, seem like Microsoft's play at all times, with really how they're acquiring studios, because sure, we're going to see that with a lot of the big budget ones we've seen, but we still don't know about Bethesda. We still don't know for sure what's going on with that. Anymore, I've learned to just not even comment on it, because it's just so up in the air still, because it's such a monolith that's out there. And Sega even more so. But at the same time, if they're serious about getting this foothold in the Japanese market finally and actually having success there, I mean, they're going to have to do something. And Sega is that one, because not only do they have, these franchises like, Sonic the Hedgehog and Streets of Rage. Well, originally Streets of Rage. I can't remember if they published the new one or not, but they have all of these huge franchises long term, but they also have Atlas, and Atlas is the ones who oversee the Persona and Shin Megami Tensei franchises, but more specifically, that's been in popular light with PlayStation has been the Persona titles, specifically like Persona 5 and whatnot. Like, they're not first party with PlayStation, but they've been releasing content exclusively on PlayStation to that degree with the Persona series and whatnot, and to rave reviews. People have wanted that. People have wanted Persona 5 on Switch for fucking. The game's only been out since 2017, at least in the States, and it feels like a decade people have been asking for that fucking game on Switch, and it's just not happening. They're not bringing it over. Like, but those games reach that audience so much, and reach an audience over here that, if you would reach out and get that and say, hey, here's the money, here, let's make it happen. We want to get Shin Megami Tensei, and more specifically, we want the sub-series of Persona on our platforms. We're going to acquire Sega to make that happen. That's how you do it. But they are making steps. You are seeing, Phantasy Star Online and stuff like that that's coming first and foremost to Xbox, when it comes to the West and whatnot. So, that's all great, and I'm excited about that. But at the same time, too, how are they going to answer the question that they keep asking of how do we get into, the Japanese market with an actual stronghold, a strong footing there, that we see some success. We are able to actually plant some roots there and try to get ingrained in the culture and make our platform successful there, and give them a reason to invest in Xbox and Microsoft, so it's really interesting. I'm curious to see how they answer that, because Sega is an easy answer to that, but Sega also is one of the, biggest names in gaming, even if they sometimes aren't necessarily, the highest on people's list of, man, I love X, Y, and Z experience that's put out. They still have a lot of, that brand name still holds a lot of weight for a lot of people. And they're still, our generation really, and a little bit older, maybe more your brother's generation, Mike, like, that generation still has such a nostalgia for Sega that, Sega's been riding on that shit forever. Like, there were times where they tried so hard to make, even after saying, hey, we're getting out of the console market, we're going into specifically software only, and, we'll be third party and whatnot, where they tried to still make Sonic the new Mario, and they still really push that, and it just didn't work, but now they're leaning so much more, it feels like, into that nostalgia era that they're finding success again. And then they're also, hey, they're JRPGs that they're developing, with their subsidiary Atlas that, does Persona and whatnot. Cool. They're letting them handle that. But you see the success of a Sonic Mania and whatnot. Like, it's games like that they're like, okay, yeah, this is where we can now make a name for ourselves and whatnot. But
exactly.
How's Microsoft going to do that? So how are they going to get into that market? And that is an easy answer, but at the same time, that's still a lot of money to make that happen. I just don't think Sega necessarily wants that. But cool. I'd hope to be honest, I would hope I'd be wrong, because that would be fucking sweet to see. I mean, that would make that, to me, that would bring up more questions than answers with Microsoft and how they're just going to make that work if deals like that fall flat. Because, like, say, hey, the Sega deal doesn't pan out, and hey, the Bethesda deal isn't bringing as much money as possible. Like, worst case scenario in all of these, they're fucked. I mean, that's a lot of money out the hole. But granted, Microsoft has the capital that they could easily do all of this, but Microsoft could also be, okay, cool, we're shutting down our gaming division, we're getting out of that. So
right.
So, but that's a lot of what ifs. But I'm really curious to see how they answer that long term with how are we going to get in there? How are we going to actually have a foothold with our Japanese consumers? Or how can we build up a Japanese consumer base that, we can actually give them content and, hardware that they find valuable that fits into their model? Because they don't do, Microsoft doesn't do handhelds. They're staying away from that outside of cloud gaming, which cloud gaming is actually pretty popular in the West. So or in the East, I mean, that it's like, how can you make that happen type of thing? So I digress. Anyways, Mike, let's move into our last news article for this week. And it's just kind of a little checkup on what's to come for xCloud. And we got a first look at Microsoft's xCloud for the web, as in your web browser, akin to that of a Stadia or even. So this comes from Tom Warren over on The Verge, as always, link in the description. Microsoft has started testing its xCloud game streaming through a web browser. Sources familiar with Microsoft's Xbox plan tell The Verge that employees are now testing a web version of xCloud ahead of public preview. The service allows Xbox players to access their games through a browser and open up xCloud to work on devices like iPhones and iPads. Much like how xCloud currently works on Android tablets and phones, the web version includes a simple launcher with recommendations for games, the ability to resume recently played titles, and access to all of your cloud games available through Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Once you launch a game, it will run full screen and you'll need a controller to play Xbox games streamed through the browser. It's not immediately clear what resolution Microsoft is streaming games at through the web version. The software maker is using Xbox One S server blades for its existing xCloud infrastructure, so 4K streaming won't be supported until the backend hardware is upgraded to Xbox Series X components this year. Microsoft is planning to bundle this web version of xCloud into the PC version of the Xbox app on Windows 10 too. The web version appears to be currently limited to Chromium browsers like Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, much like Google's Stadia service. Microsoft is planning some form of public preview for xCloud via the web in the spring, and the wider internal testing signals that the preview is getting very, very close. The big drive behind this web version is support for iOS and iPad OS hardware. Apple imposes limitations on iOS apps and cloud services, and Microsoft wasn't able to support the iPhone and iPad when it launched xCloud in beta for Android last year. Apple said Microsoft would need to submit individual games for review, a process that Microsoft labeled as a bad experience for consumers, end quote. So, obviously, this is a big piece of the pie that has been a long time coming for Microsoft and their xCloud. Hell, even their Game Pass as a whole vision, considering the doors a browser-based alternative opens up for subscribers, specifically, like Tom was saying in his article, iOS users. That's always been the biggest thing of how do we get, one of the largest install bases in the phone market into our service? How can they access this? How can they make this work? What is more interesting to think about, though, is, to me at least, how does this affect their competition in cloud gaming, specifically Stadia, after their recent commitment to being the third-party home for cloud-based gaming? So, Mike, does an a la carte service like Game Pass sound more appealing for this kind of experience compared to, a single buyer purchase one-time thing that Stadia traditionally offers, even though Stadia will have newer and sometimes more impactful, large, bigger budget, like a Cyberpunk and whatnot experiences available instead of Game Pass. Where's this trade-off at, and where does it become more valuable, less valuable? What do you think about all of that?
Yeah, I see xCloud as something that Microsoft has really been touting for a long time, saying like, this is coming. And it's like one of those things that everyone knows is coming down the pipe, but nobody knows exactly what to expect from it. But we're seeing more and more come from this. And I've seen the beta and actually gotten to play the beta version. You've played it. You've experienced it. We all both kind of felt like the delay is a little tough to get over. But if they work those types of kinks out with the internet speed and everything, that's another reason why a lot of these wireless carriers are pushing 5G so aggressively, is like 5G service is something that could potentially make xCloud work. And as far as the question of, does Game Pass make this service a lot more plausible and competitive? I think without a doubt, the answer is yes. Whenever you look at a subscription service like Game Pass, you're looking at something where a small upfront investment of $15 a month is going to get you access to all these games. And oh, by the way, you don't even need a computer. You don't even need an Xbox to play. You can just play it on your phone or on your Apple TV or whatever. Like, that's going to be super cool if that comes down the pipe. Now, I know, for me, the experience I'm looking for, I'm still going to need to be able to enjoy the game on an Xbox and a PC. And I know you probably feel the same way too. But, it's definitely all super exciting. And if internet speeds and everything can kind of catch up to the rest of the world and what, people in Europe get to experience, then I don't see why this isn't something that would be very competitive or even, something that would be feasible coming down the pipe, as far as just completely almost... It feels a lot like Steam, doesn't it? Like they were kind of taking a page out of Valve's book, and that's what they were looking to do. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. And that's where it becomes really interesting with how this is tackled. Like, I think Microsoft sees this whole... I think they see the whole xCloud experience much more at this point. Obviously, wanting to get in with Apple users was the big piece of this. And I think that's where they see probably most of the money at, because everybody and their fucking brother seems to have an iPhone for the most part, or at least one that's probably compatible, or some kind of Apple device in their house, whether it be an iPad or an iPhone. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think Apple's at this point just that they're just the phone service to go through for the most part. Like, most people just go and get an iPhone, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But, I stand by Microsoft at that point of saying, okay, like, well, if you're their big thing was, okay, if we're not allowed and we're service-based, why is something like a Netflix allowed where, we want to, we're going to have to do this. If you're on the App Store, we have to go through and, rate each individual piece of content that's on there. Okay, well, why doesn't Netflix have to do that? Why don't these other large streaming platforms that you have on here, why can they not do that? Why can't, even a remote play like Sony has? And granted, that's more of a, shared screen experience, not necessarily a, streaming thing, like we're seeing with xCloud and PlayStation Now or something like that. I think PlayStation Now is more in line, but it's still the same type of thing. So, at least in the same vein type of thing, that it's like, okay, well, I could do X, Y, and Z on this. Why do we have to be treated differently like that? So, like, to me, I side more with that, and I'm really interested to see where this payoff comes with Apple. Like, if it's going to be that big, if it's going to be as big as I think they're expecting it to be. I think it will be, but at the same time, they're trying to reach, I think, the mobile phone market in terms of mobile gamers to say, hey, yeah, you like playing these games, that's great, but you could play something that is a $60 title right on your phone with our service. Like we can get you into even better games and this and that. And I think the mobile phone, me personally, I think mobile gamers are such a different breed of people who game. Like, and I still consider them quote unquote gamers. I think anybody who plays games, whether it's Candy Crush or whatever, is a gamer, like quote unquote gamer. I hate using that phrase. Somebody who enjoys games, like I think you do count those, but they are to a degree different in the style of how they're going to consume these games. And I just don't think they're looking to consume, a 30, 40-hour epic on their phone.
Yeah.
Like I'm with you. I want to sit down in front of my TV when I'm playing my Xbox console or in front of my PC when I'm playing, a high-end game or something like a high-fidelity game or, especially a first-person shooter, any kind of a competitive experience. I want to be playing on the hardware it was designed on to actually do that,
right,
and give me the best experience. But I do really like xCloud for the fact that, hey, if there is something smaller, I want to just pop in on my phone. Great, cool. Or hey, you know what? I kind of want to. I have my lunch out. Hey, I have downtime at work, or hey, I'm eating my lunch at work. I want to pop on and I want to, organize my loot that's in Destiny right now, so I don't have to later and send this off to a friend because he's playing right now in our clan, and I can't obviously do that, but I want to give him this. He can go and do yada yada. Like I think it's going to be for those type of experiences really good, and for like if there's any kind of Telltale-esque experiences, I think that's going to be a hit. And even too, once you get to this being on PC, like they're talking about the browser base, because I tried Stadia on both my PC and my TV, and surprisingly the tech's really good. Like it ran really well. I was able to get play it with a Chromecast 4K and stuff like that they sent me, and it was really, I thought the tech behind it was fucking great. I don't agree with the model. I would rather take a model like a Game Pass has that is very much plug and play, good to go, and here's all of the games you're playing, because I just don't see this as being, if somebody who is investing in this probably already knows about this, like, I don't think there's going to be that many casual consumers coming in off the bench to get in on this in terms of, like, just reaching out to new people and getting new people into this ecosystem. I just don't think I think they're relying more on, hey, this is going to be a great secondary option for X, Y, and Z gamer who is already, I listen to gaming podcasts, I buy a lot of new games throughout the year, yada yada, who is familiar with the tech, who is familiar with everything involved with gaming, pretty much the knows-hows. I think that's where you're going to see the most success with this, because then those people can say, oh, well, I don't have a high-end PC, but I want to play this RTS, and I don't want to even fucking try it on my console. Like, cool, I could do it through, xCloud on my PC, and I could run it like it's being ran through, a rig with at least a 2080 in it and stuff like that. So, like, I think that's where it's going to see more success at. But, I would rather take that personally. I would rather take that kind of experience in terms of an a la carte experience than, Stadia, where I'm buying games, I'm owning them, and I'm keeping them forever in a way at the same price point as I would if I could just go and buy, Joe Blow game, whatever, on my Xbox or PS4 or whatever. I can just go and buy them for a console for the same price and not have to worry about my internet, not have to worry about, and granted, that removes the, barrier to entry for people who don't have those consoles, but I'm curious to see how many of those people are actually out there, because I don't think there are as many as we're being led on to believe there are, who are ready to make that jump into gaming, but don't want to buy a console or whatever. I think most people who are interested in gaming already own one of the consoles and are going to be there. That's just me, though.
That was like a huge thing about the GameStop stock when everyone was when all the experts, and I use air quotes when I'm saying that, I know you can't see me, when all the stock experts were like, why are people buying GameStop stock? Wow. It's like, they're like, everyone's buying games digitally now. And it's like, actually less than 50% of the market is 100% digital. I'm someone who only buys digitally.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many people that aren't like me, that want physical copies of games, that want physical things, that are buying games still. And they're one of the reasons why GameStop stock still was not, they just weren't going to go bankrupt.
Right.
And it's because of this common misconception that everyone's buying digitally now. Everyone's buying digitally now. It's bullshit. It's not true. It's not. And it's not going to be true. The internet in a lot of people's areas is not good enough to put up with that.
Right.
First and foremost. Secondly, it's just not fucking true. Like, you're just lying through your teeth whenever you say everyone's using digital experiences now. It's just not happening.
Right.
And it's one of my pet peeves. And the reason why I wanted to go off on this tangent is because it's so agitating, because it's just not true. It's not true.
Right.
It's just a bold-faced lie, point blank period. It's lying because it supports your theory or your opinion, and it's just not the truth. There are plenty of people out there like you that want physical copies of games. They want physical things. They want things in their hands now. They want the collection. And a lot of people, it's not even that they want to collect. It's like, this is the way I've always done it. Digital is cool and all, but I want to go. They still enjoy that experience of going to the store and buying the games for themselves. Like, people still enjoy that. And that's one of my sticking points as to why I buy my games digitally. I don't want to drive to the store and put up with a salesperson trying to get me to sign up for GameStop Pro or this or that. Like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other people in the world that do want to go hear that. They do want that experience. Whenever I was still working for Best Buy and they cut the gaming thing out, like, I remember GameStop or Best Buy in Greensburg, PA, like, they had a very good gaming team there when I was there towards the end. A lot of them had worked for GameStop in the past, and like, they had a very successful gaming team there. And they just cut the legs out from under them by getting rid of the gaming team. Now you can't even buy CDs there anymore, which was one of the big appeals to GameStop or to Best Buy. And I know Best Buy was changing gears, and it wasn't like it was a bad decision.
Yeah, I mean, not many. I mean, hell, most cars that come out now don't have CD players on them.
Yeah,
so
like,
it's like just understandable. But there are those, like, I've gotten one CD in the past probably 6 or 7 years, and it was whenever I bought my Blink 182 tickets last year. They sent me the new album, and that was the first time I'd gotten a CD in so long. But I understand the appeal of it. Like, there are a couple of CDs that I actually would like to buy from bands that, like, you know, I'm really into, that I missed their first initial album or something like that. Yeah. Like, I want to get those. That's a cool collector thing, but it's such a niche thing anymore. Because even me, like, I'm starting to buy more and more digital as I go. Like, obviously, all 200 plus of my Steam games that I have are all digital. Like, it's all digital.
Yeah, but if you had the option, would you have went to the store to buy Valheim? Would you have went to the store to buy CSGO?
Maybe,
I mean, probably.
Maybe CSGO, yeah. Like, but that's the thing. Like, usually when I buy my games physical now, it's usually either, you know, hey, I want to, like, PC. There's no option now. There's just no option to do that, which kind of sucks.
There used to be,
right?
Because I have a copy of Rainbow Six 3 at my house, at my parents' house. I have a copy of Rainbow Six 3, like the Raven Shield PC game. I have one. I have one in the box.
I mean, I'm sitting right here looking at the last physical PC game that I bought was probably Diablo 3 when it first launched. I take that, I take that back, because I bought, like, I think I had bought the battle chest as well of that too, to get the expansion, because it was like the same price or whatever, and I got both expansions. But I digress. I'm looking right here, like, I have my Counter-Strike Source box, I have my StarCraft 2 box, my World of Warcraft original box, my Warcraft 3 original box, and my Diablo 3 one. Like, those are games that, like, you know, I'm glad I still have, but, like, I get that that's dead and gone now. Like, those are collector's items, and that's kind of what, like, my physical stuff is turning into. Like, most of the time, like, I'm starting to see a trend on the console end that I'm starting to buy more digital. But at the same time, too, it's like, most of the games that I'm buying day and date are games that I'm really high on, that I know I've been waiting for or whatnot, and I'm usually buying, like, the Steelbook edition. Because it's like The Last of Us Part 2. I bought the collector's edition, like the big box collector's edition for that, because I have a very, very soft place in my heart for Naughty Dog and their franchises and whatnot. I mean, hell, I have an Uncharted tattoo. Like, you know, I have a connection with those. Same with, like, looking at my shelf here. You know, Resident Evil. I have the Steelbook for Resident Evil 2. I have Uncharted 4's Steelbook. Then I have, you know, I mean, unfortunately, but this was from how long ago, Halo 5's collector's edition, like the Steelbook for that, and, you know,
Sure.
Gears 4 and stuff like that. Like, those are the, like, I'm getting those for these franchises that I really like because I'm not buying as physical as much. And that's where, like, I see, you're just going to start to see, I think, eventually, and I'm talking like 10 years from now. I don't think this is going to be anything like short term, like within the next year or two. I think like we're looking at midterm length for the gaming industry. Like, I think within 10 years, it's going to be more comic book shop-esque appeal to getting games where, hey, you duck in and there's only a couple around, and or you order it online to get the physical sent to you or something like that, where it's just going to be, you know, all in one type of thing, or you're going to have to buy an adapter for your PS6 or your Xbox, whatever. Like, it's going to be that route where if you really want that, you're going to have to do, you know, this, but the digital consoles are going to rule and stuff like that. And to be honest, I'm okay with that. I'm not one of those people who are like in their bunker worried about like, they're going to take away the digital rights to my games and I'm going to lose all this money and stuff because of all these games that I bought that I won't be able to access. Like, there's going to be solutions for that. We're seeing some of the headaches that came with early digital purchasing at times. Sure, yes, but you have to understand people are going to be a little more cautious. Like, the people who are going to be stepping into those positions where they're making those calls are the people who have been playing these games for a long time. Like, they're the ones who understand this, and they're going to eventually, they're going to have ways to protect people from those long shot, you know, issues that could potentially happen in a, you know, God forbid type of thing happen, because it's just going to get to the point of they're going to have no choice. Like, if that's the only option they're going to have, they need to protect not only themselves but their consumers, because they won't have any consumers to do that. But I digress. I'm one of those people that I'll still buy the big games physically if I really want to, but I am starting to become more digital. Even the past like year, I've started buying more digitally.
The main point,
also,
like,
too, a pandemic helps that as well. But
the main point I was just trying to make, and you definitely are helping me out with that, is like, gaming isn't CDs. It's not the same fucking thing.
Right.
It's not even close. So if your argument is, well, people aren't buying CDs anymore, you're right. That's 100% the truth.
Yeah.
But games aren't fucking CDs.
Right.
They're just not.
Right. And I totally agree with you. 100% agree with you. Mike, I think that's going to wrap it up, at least for our big topics. But before we head out, let's head into Party Chat for this week. And if you're new to the show, Party Chat is our segment where we propose one question at the end of each week that we just want to discuss. Could be as simple as, what's your favorite story beat in the game? What have you been playing during the shitty pandemic and quarantine and whatnot? Or it could be a little more in depth as to, like, why the negative stigma around gaming still exists. And after answering it ourselves, we'll kick it over to you to tweet your responses over on our Twitter at GPGCPodcast, or email us at bonusaccessory@gmail.com, and we'll read some of the responses the following week. Last week's question: how many new, in all bold, new Microsoft ecosystem exclusives, that's PC and Xbox, titles do you think will be released by the end of 2021? And Phoenix Down 876 said 10. 3 Microsoft Game Studios, so I guess he means Xbox Game Studios, 3 actual first-party titles, and the rest will be indie/third-party partner. Okay, I got it. Yeah, so he's saying 10 total, 3, or I should say, they are saying 10 total, 3 Xbox first-party titles, and the rest will be indie or third-party partner releases with, I'm guessing, timed exclusivity or whatnot. So, cool. I like it. That could be potentially true, because I think we're going to see a lot of ID at Xbox games kind of pop up over the rest of the year. Now that they're seeing much more of a digital emphasis themselves with how they're conducting business, and especially too with the pandemic and whatnot. But Mike, this week's question: When do you think we will see Microsoft's next formal showcase of games in 2021? Because there's a lot of rumors going around that, it hasn't, I don't believe it's been officially confirmed. That's why I didn't put it in the rundown, but that E3 is going to be doing a digital event this year. They're foregoing, they forewent last year saying, hey, we're not doing anything, because that was kind of right in the, firing line of everything going on with the pandemic and whatnot. So that was the smart choice to make. Now this year they're coming back saying, hey, we're at least doing a digital event, yada, yada. I'm not sure how many partners are actually going to, get with them on that, considering Microsoft doesn't even have they have a booth there, but they don't do their E3 showcase at E3. They do it at their own venue and whatnot. But, when do you think we're going to see the next Xbox game showcase or next E3 briefing, experience type of, press conference type of thing? When do you think we're going to see Microsoft's next formal showcase of games this year?
I would say probably like May
Yeah.
or June, like one of those 2 months, probably when they normally have it. They're not going to rush anything. There's nothing in the cooker that's ready to come out. That's probably when we're going to see Starfield, to be honest. I bet you that's going to be a big thing, is like in May or June. That's when Bethesda's going to come on the stage, do their big thing. And that's when we're going to see the updates to Starfield. We're still not going to see Elder Scrolls 6 because I don't believe that it's even in development. I won't believe it until I see anything about it.
Right.
I still think that there's probably another 6 Fallout games coming out before Elder Scrolls. So, yeah, I say May or June. I'm not bitter at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. Absolutely not. No, I actually agree. I think, we haven't, what's nice about these digital events that, in the switch to doing digital promotion like a Nintendo Direct, like something like that is, you can control the news week if possible. You can control the message. You can control everything internally because it's you putting it out. You're not worried about an E3 time slot or anything like that, or sharing booth space or whatever. You own the mind share of people if you plan it correctly and put it out correctly and whatnot. And what's nice is, too, you could do it more than once and whatnot. I think in terms of an Xbox showcase, in terms of like we saw where, Infinite's demo was revealed and they showed the gameplay of Infinite and whatnot, I think that is going to be, like you said, a May, June, late May, early June, that E3 timeframe. I still think a lot of people are going to be planning around that, just because it's a good, clean cut at like a 6-month mark, a mid-year, like, hey, let's check in type of thing with investors and obviously the press and us, the consumers. I think that's always been such a natural thing to do. But I do think we're also going to see another, inside Xbox. They're almost like their Xbox video magazine that they like to do. I think we're going to see eventually another one of those maybe in the meantime, just to kind of, hey, let's take a look at what Sea of Thieves is up to or whatever. Like, it's going to be more, already released products, games that have a continuous pipeline of content that's coming to them, like a Sea of Thieves and whatnot. I think it may be that more so than, an Xbox game showcase, but at the same time too, I don't think that's going to be very far behind. And I do agree with you that if we do see Starfield, we're not going to see it. I think we do see it in that time frame, like a May, June, because that's always made sense. Bethesda, as I talked about before, and really as, I'm sure most of their fans have seen now, they really, especially since Todd Howard's taken over, directing and whatnot, or at least having a large role within these titles. Their Bethesda Game Studio titles, they're in-house developed, not, partnered, subsidiaries like id or anything like that. Like their Elder Scrolls, their Fallouts, those type of experiences. They usually don't say anything till they're pretty much done. They don't like to, and that's why I always say, like, and I think that's why you hear Todd Howard be so hesitant whenever, in interviews and whatnot, that almost that he regrets showing both Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 or announcing them, almost 3 years ago now, because they're so far out still. That he was, they typically don't do that. They're usually, because they don't want to get, I don't want to say expectations or anything like that, but they want to, and I can completely understand that they want to show the game in the best possible light, period. They want to have the game, you know, in the most playable, best view of it, because you only get to make a first impression once. So I get that. And so if they're traditionally, you know, if they're going to stay that and reintroduce Starfield and, you know, talk about an experience like that, you know, it makes a lot of sense, because that's probably going to be right around the time, or at least in the window of when the acquisition for Bethesda is finally finished. You know, we're looking at a spring date somewhere in there between sometime late next month, I believe, to May. So that might be perfect. Boom, it's official. Let's talk about it now. You know, so that may line up with that. So I'm right there with you. I'm saying May, June, late May, early June, something like that. Maybe even into mid-June. That kind of month time frame, I would say. But anyways, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs to talk about all the nerdy stuff we talked about? Rainbow Six, Parasite, don't call it Parasite, or Quarantine. I swear to Christ, don't fucking call it that. Whether you want to talk about that or any of the nerdy, cool stuff we talked about, Sega and xCloud, all the cool stuff we talked about, where can people find you on the internet to talk about that?
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms, including at Traveless_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Traveless_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with your boy over on Xbox Live, you can do so at just regular Traveless. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz I tell you about every week, wherever you get a podcast at. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it. Mike, that's it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.